There it is.
There it is. All right. Well, it is 3 o'clock on the money. I know we had just over, I think, 50 people signed up, so I'm sure more people will keep coming in as we go. Um, just a couple of, let's see, Andrew McNerlin already putting in the Q&A. There's no chat, but there is the Q&A. Noor, I believe, is on with the chat. So any chats that you have or questions, you can put them in the chat, and we are going to have a Q&A session at the end. So I'm sure you all are going to have a ton of questions for Mark because he's the sales hunter after all. And why wouldn't you ask him questions now that you got him here? So Bob Britton, aloha. Man, Bob, I'm always so grateful for you. It is still 3 o'clock. Mark, you ready to get going?
Yeah, let's go. Let's have some fun. Let's talk.
Let's do it. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, everybody. We are going to walk through a PowerPoint, but we're going to be quick. We're going to move fast, and we're going to have some fun. So let's get into it. You guys can see that later. Here we are. All right. So Mark, before we tell everybody about who we are, I would love for you to share, why did you want to do this webinar, not just with me, but why? I know right now trade shows are so important to you and to a lot of your clients. You share with us a little bit like why this has been so important for you.
Yeah, because trade shows have come back in. They faded out during COVID, but they're back stronger than ever. But the problem that I see is people are spending money for the trade show, but they're not getting an ROI. They're not getting a return on investment because they're not doing the pre-work. And the pre-work isn't determining what's going to be our giveaway, who's going to man the booth. No, it's not. Our pre-work is making sure we're introducing ourselves to people who we're going to meet at the show, setting up pre-meetings, setting up engagements to where when the show happens, we've got business coming to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a video, Mark. I know I haven't shown it to you yet, but I have been at several trade shows over the last several months working with clients. And a lot of it is what we're going to be talking about today on the demand generation side. But I got a little clip of a video. It's about a 40-second video of listening to some of the leaders and what they did to plan and prepare for their trade show. So for everybody, that'll be fun for you. Mark, I don't think you really need much introduction, but I would love for you to share a little bit about you with everybody and let them know who you are and all the cool stuff that you do.
Yeah, I am known as the sales hunter. My last name is Hunter. I didn't change it to take this job. Hey, welcome, Judy from Tacoma. I grew up in Olympia, Washington, just south of where you're at. But anyway, back to the show here. I get to work with companies around the world. I've had the privilege of speaking now 30 different countries, 5 continents, all talking about sales. Sales is a conversation. Sales is about helping others see and achieve what they didn't think was possible. Along the journey, I've had a chance to write several books, got several podcasts. You probably have seen my stuff out on LinkedIn, but I know the power of creating the engagement. We're going to talk a little bit about this if we get time, what I call the 3D. People have got to see you in 3 different dimensions before they want to do business with you. This is why I'm on social media. This is why I've written books. This is why I do videos. This is why I'm on this. This is why I do trade shows. You've got to put your presence out there. And that's why I love the people at Fist Bump. I love Brandon because the model he's got.
Thanks, Mark. Mark's been a long distance hero of mine. And then as I've got to use LinkedIn, I've got to start engaging with him. And like I say, if you want to try to be a big dog, you got to go hang out with the big dogs. And LinkedIn is just such a great place to do it, because when the big dogs like Mark, when they post content and you come along and you comment, guess what they do? They comment back. And then you get to build a relationship. And that's the way Mark and I have gotten to know each other over the years. So yeah, Judy and Jim and Bob and Chris and everybody in there, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Brandon Lay. I am the founder of Fist Bump. What our mission is to help our clients earn more fist bumps with their ideal customers. And as we all know, anybody in business, man, they'll shake your hand. You can shake hands, have a really horrible meeting, and then shake hands at the end of the meeting. But when somebody gives you a fist bump, It means there's a bit of connection, there's a rapport, and that's what we do to work with working with our clients. We help them build more pipeline through content, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we get along into it. We have this cool strategy around this concept of engagement outreach that we do, but we'll jump into that as we get going. Mark, the next slide is this video. I know you've been like waiting for it, but this is me at trade shows talking to sales leaders and marketing leaders and just hearing a little bit about what they did to prepare. And I think what I need to do is take the AirPods off. There we go. If I press play with my AirPods in, nobody would be able to hear it. So this is me talking to sales leaders and marketing leaders, asking them, what did they do to prepare to spend their, $50 to $100 to $250,000 and more to come to this show? So let's hear what they had to say.
Everyone, I'm at Community Summit 2024. I'm still at Community Summit. I'm at Community Summit. I'm still at Community Summit. I got a cool orange hat on. Aren't you jealous? What did you do before the show? What's the thinking? How do you prepare for a show like this?
Well, first of all, this is really a strategic investment for us. It's the single biggest investment in marketing. So it's very important for us to prepare well for it. And then really from there, it's, about 6 months out, let's figure out who's going. Let's get our badges secured. Let's get messaging ready for this beautiful booth build. Let's get some stuff ordered, some swag, shirts, and then show up and hope to meet some great people. A lot of talking and a lot of strategizing on what our theme was going to be, how we want to attract customers, clients, vendors to our booth.
The idea with the booth messaging is you got to level up your system, right? So what we've got is the best solutions in the game. Come by our booth, learn about why you can level up with our solution.
We'll send post-event email communications, and we'll also have our sales team and reps, follow up with those individuals based on the notes that we've captured.
Mark, what did you hear there?
They weren't doing anything to get ready for outreach. We talk right here. We have up on the screen the challenge of outreach. They're not doing any of it. They're waiting. They think what they're doing is if they create a mouse trap, somehow they're going to capture a mouse. What I want to do is I want to lead the mice to the trap. Okay, now I don't mean customers or mouse, but what am I doing before the event? What am I doing to create a sense of buzz, a sense of, hey, I want to make sure I meet with these folks. That's a shame because they spent a lot of money, a lot of planning, and they're not going to get the ROI because they didn't do the pre-work.
Yeah. And Mark, what I heard in there is, they're planning on where their booth's going to be, what the booth's going to be, what the theme's going to be, what their tchotchkes were going to be. And by the way, that was a really cool orange hat. And I did bring it home with me because, yeehaw. But in some of the booths they had video games in them, and people were standing in line to play video games. Like, oh, it's great when they're in line playing video games. We come over and we start talking to them about our services. And like, how do you know they're your ideal customer?
That's the big problem. And that's why you've got to know exactly, okay, who is my audience? And I hope they're not not participating in a trade show that doesn't match their ICP, ideal customer profile. That's lesson number one. But beforehand, what are you doing to connect with these people? What are you doing to create awareness from a social media standpoint? What are you doing out there to get people ready for your booth? Because when they walk the floor, there's a lot of booths that they can stop in. You want to make sure that yours is a booth they stop in, and you got to do that. The work begins before they arrive.
Yeah. Mark, I'm going to pose this question to the audience and let them put it in the chat, is asking them, what do you all see as some of the challenges of outreach? And as you put it in there, I have another question for you, Mark. What do you advise and how do you coach your teams, your clients in sales department? What should they start doing 6 months, 3 months, and 1 month out of their biggest trade show of the year?
Well, one of the things you're going to do, you're going to start this 6 months out, especially if it requires travel, especially if it requires different things. You're going to start reaching out to various prospects and saying, hey, we're going to be at the show. Are you planning to go? You want to make sure that they get it on their calendar to attend. 3 months out, if you're participating, you're beginning to say, hey, can I get the registration list? Can I see who's registered? Because again, I want to know who to target to get registered and who is already there. but I want to start dialing up my communication, letting people be aware of what's happening out there. Now, the way I can many times do this is I talk about the industry. I talk about what's happening in the industry. Oh, you're right. You're right. You know what? I need to go to that industry trade show. I'm not necessarily talking about myself early on. I'm talking about the industry. And guess what? The organization that's putting on the event is going to love you for it, because what are you doing? You're helping to get more people registered. What is that going to do? That's going to, yeah, I get it. Booth placement is based on how much you pay, but it's still going to get you that little extra. You know what? We're going to move you over to this side over here, this aisle over here. It's going to get a little more traffic. Yes, love it, because you're doing it. You've got to start your work reaching out long before the show begins.
That's good stuff. And I'm gonna move to Mark. One of the things that I found especially over the last probably 5+ years. Now, I saw this trend happening before COVID. I know that you've experienced this with the companies you coach, is that cold calling, and I'm not one that says it's dead, but I will say it's challenged. And cold email, again, I don't think it's dead, but I think it's got some pretty big challenges that need to be addressed. And as I've been looking at outreach, I've been looking at revenue creation, I'm looking at sales, like whatever term we want to use in there. One of the things that I've noticed is that salespeople need to incorporate some of these, what we traditionally call marketing activities, in order to build a personal brand. And I know that term personal brand can be, a bit controversial and people don't like it. But I believe that if we can substitute that word for reputation, that if you have a reputation, we know the expression, your reputation precedes you. If you have a reputation and you call somebody and they go, oh, I know that name, they're much more likely to answer the call or return the voicemail than if they have absolutely no idea who you are. And so we've started using this term that we call engagement outreach. And it's our attempt of saying, hey, you've got one foot in sales, but you have to have one foot in what has traditionally been called marketing. Now, I'm a big believer we blow up those silos, because we're all about creating revenue and creating conversations. And so the term engagement outreach, it basically means it's a proactive strategy of building your personal reputation and your network, because we know your network is your net worth, to create demand and increase a positive response to your sales outreach. Mark, what are your thoughts about that?
This is huge. Yeah, this is the key thing. When we talk about engagement outreach, you can't just throw it out there into the vast worldwide. No, unless you're Coca-Cola or Starbucks or Apple, it's not going to happen. This is where you got to be tailoring your focus. And this, again, is what you do very well, Brandon. You help people really understand where's their niche, where's their space. That's when you do it. I've been able to develop a fairly good sized brand around the Sales Hunter. And brand, I mean reputation. Why? Because the content I put out there. Now, it's taken many years to curate that and develop that. But here's the whole thing. If you're spending $20, $30, $40, $50,000 on a trade show, or even more, years ago when I was in corporate America, we would spend well more than that on many, many trade shows. Doesn't it make sense for me to have an engagement outreach that begins before the trade show? Because I want to be able to create the target. Somebody put in there, Bob Britton said, yes, it is all about the person. This is why, nobody's going to open up an email from somebody they don't know. This is why we've got to create engagement outreach on social media. This is why we do things, because I got to become known out there. So when I do reach out to you, oh yeah, I know these people. I got to put enough messages into the marketplace so that when it comes time for you walking the trade show floor, oh, I know these people. I recognize that. And suddenly a conversation can develop.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mark, as you say, that reminds me of being at these trade shows over the last couple of months. And I mean, you've all seen this, right? People walk down the aisles like this, and it's like, don't look too far left and don't look too far right, because if you make eye contact with somebody, they're gonna shove a brochure in your hand, and they're gonna want to scan your badge, right? You scan your badge, scan your badge, scan your badge. And I see people walking down the middle, and they're like, they want to look, but they don't want to be assaulted. right? They don't want a salesperson to jump all over them. So they just kind of do this rigid little, like, I'll look a little left, I'll look a little right, but please don't attack me.
Can I just say that's confessions from a trade show attendee? But we've all been there. We've all done that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I also like to see, and I've seen this many times, is when somebody walks along and they look and they go, hey, and they walk right in and they go, oh, I know you. I've seen you all over my phone. That would be much more ideal. And what we're going to talk about today is how do you lay the foundation in order to make that happen for you? And today's agenda is really, really simple. We're going to talk about pre-show, at show, and post-show. What are the activities that you can do that you could achieve? What if attendees approach your booth already feeling like they know you? I mean, what if you have people walk by and go, oh yeah, and they walk right in? Mark, I like to call it the mini celebrity experience, because, you know, celebrities, if you watch interviews with them and like they go places and people walk up and act like they know them. And what we're talking about is how do we leverage things like LinkedIn or content or video content or other mediums so that our ideal customers, our total addressable market, our industry looks around and goes, I know that person. I know you.
You know, the perfect response is when they go, wow, you're a lot taller than you look like on LinkedIn. Or you're a lot taller than you look like in that video. That means, you know what? They've seen you, they've recognized you, and wow, there's some recognition.
Yeah, I got a text from one of our clients the other day saying, he's like, oh my gosh, I just got it. I'm like, yeah, what's that? And he's like, somebody responded to my email and said, yeah, let's schedule a meeting. I feel like I already know you from LinkedIn. Like,
Perfect.
exactly, success.
Perfect.
Yeah. So Mark, let's jump in. We're going to talk about pre-show. And on the sales side, and everybody, the way that we're going to do this, Mark is going to talk about from sales actions, and I'm going to talk what you can do from this demand or this engagement outreach, this demand creation side. And I'm not talking about, oh, this is a marketing activity or it's a sales activity. I'm saying this is an activity that somebody needs to, like, individuals need to own for themselves. You got to own your own pipeline. You got to do the activities it's going to take to build your pipeline. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So Mark, do you want to kick it off about pre-show? What does sales need to do?
Yeah. Pre-shows, you got to put yourself out there. I mean, yourself. Hello. It's not about your company. Okay, yeah, I get it, your company, but you know, trade shows in particular become emotional experiences. It's why does that person walk down the center of the aisle floor, not looking eye contact because they don't want to get drug into a booth. So you got to create that personal. Your messages, what you're doing out there, you got to let them understand that it's you and you as an individual. When they begin to understand that, then they begin to open up and they become more receptive to your message. Now, this doesn't mean that I go wonky, show videos of my kids and all that sort of stuff. But what I'm doing is I'm allowing them to understand that I'm human, I'm an individual, and I'm crafting my message. Now, I'm not crafting my message of saying, hey, come by my booth because we got great swag. No, come on, forget it. That's table stakes. And that really isn't even necessary. What you want to be doing from a pre-show is really sharing with them some industry insights, sharing with them what's happening out there. Why is it important for them to make sure they go and attend every day of the show? You know, what makes it important for them to want to say, you know what, we need to bring a couple more people with us on the show. I want to elevate the show and the importance of the industry space that it is playing in. That's one of the key things about the pre-show.
I love that, Mark. And to supplement that, one of the ways that we've seen to help do that is through interview style video content. And there's a couple ways that you can do it. I think companies who have their own live show and podcast, it's a great opportunity to bring your clients on as guests and let them share their experiences with your company, especially following like the hero's journey. Where were they? Where are they now? What was life like before they implemented this? And now what does it look like? It's an opportunity for you to bring some of your team members on the show and let them be the guest and tell you, hey, we're going to this trade show. Why should people come? What are we going to talk about? Oh, you've got to talk, that you have a breakout session that you're going to do. Why should people come? When we put them on video, and this is a very specific strategy, if you're taking notes, this is the stuff to take down. Do an interview style video. Number one, interview style, and I love selfie videos. They do great, but interview style videos get more engagement. Like the psychology of it too is somebody's a guest. They must have credibility. They're a guest on a show. So they're the guest, and you're able to do that interview. And I like to keep it under 10 minutes as an interview. And here's why. You can take a 10-minute video and load it into LinkedIn as a social post. And then you can use that post and do so many different things with it. Number one, you can start sending the link to the post to some of your prospective customers. Hey, if you're attending ABC show, I thought maybe you'd want to take a look at this. It just gives you this great opportunity to outreach without it being, you got time for a meeting? Right? Share links to it. Take that post or take the video and go put it into groups where attendees from the show are in as members of the group, and let them start seeing it. You're just bringing awareness of your person, your brand, and your booth, and what you're going to be doing at the show. And one last thing, and this is probably one of the most beneficial, is if you create a list of expected attendees. Now, there's a lot of companies out there that will try and sell you databases for attendees to shows, and most of them are crap. I get that. But if you have a database, go into Zoom Info or go into LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and you create a database based on titles and industry and geographic of who we expect to be attendees at the show, you can load that into LinkedIn as what's called a custom audience. And then take that social post, like the one that you have on there. This is an example of one that we did with a client and put it into a custom audience. We had about 6,000 people that we expected would be attending, and we put an ad campaign behind it in order to get people recognizing the brand and the people. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, a 10-minute video and an ad, like that's crazy good. What we found with this one, over 6,000 people, we had 392 people who had watched 100% of that video. And we had over 1,800 people who had watched over 50% of that video. We don't get to know who they are, but we can move them into a retargeted list and then advertise them to schedule a meeting with you before the show. Landing page built right into LinkedIn. So what we're doing, and I'll summarize and finish up, what we do with the 10-minute video is we're allowing people to kind of self-identify that they're actually interested in this topic. Because if somebody watched 50% or more of a 10-minute video, they're doing some research. They're thinking this is important to them. And then you can take it into the next campaign where you're offering to schedule meetings either before the event or schedule a meeting before the event for the event and get in front of people. And that's one of the really great ways that we do this, engagement outreach in order to start creating demand and interest and awareness before the show.
Hey, Brandon, I want to jump in with a couple things. Think about this. Everybody freaked out. 10-minute video. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. But the numbers that you shared, Brandon, absolutely impressive. Now think about this. These are absolutely engaged people. So these are people who you want to be targeting. Here's something else to do. When you do something like this, you do a campaign like that, you had a large number of people. Let the organizers of the trade show know this is what you're doing, because they're going to be impressed that you're sending this out to help get more people registered. They're going to love you for it. They're going to appreciate you for that. And guess what? You are going to get favorable treatment. Don't leave out the organizers in your
Yeah,
communication.
that's a really good point, Mark. I'm glad you added that. You know, we just did one with Ludia Consulting for Community Summit. And yeah, John Seifert, the founder of Community Dynamic Communities, who runs that show, came over and said, "Oh, thanks for all the work you guys have been doing in helping promote the show. You are spot on. I didn't even think about that." Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, the goal, everybody, with this, and what we've done, those that don't have their own live show and podcast, we bring them as guests on the trade show and talk to them. But that goal is, we want to start building that reputation. We want to build that awareness. We want to get people to start saying, "Oh my gosh, I see you everywhere." And that leads to the next one that we hope to get is, "I feel like I've already known you." That consistency, that proximity starts to build that know, like, and trust. And then when they're walking down the aisle and they're scared to look left or right, but they see you, they see your brand, they see people on your team that they've seen in these videos, guess what happens? They're not as scared. They walk in, they go, "Hey," again, that mini celebrity effect. They go, "Oh, hey, you guys are here." And a lot of times they go, "I've been seeing you all over my phone." And they walk right in, and you get to have a great conversation.
There's something cool about the trade show. It just elevates it. It makes it seem like, wow, this is something big. That you guys got on the trade show. That's pretty cool. It elevates you. And this is the whole thing. It's all about positioning. And again, this is what all this pre-show stuff that you're doing. It's about elevating your reputation, elevating your brand, elevating your company.
Yeah. Now, Mark, at the show, what is important for salespeople, for leaders, for companies to be doing at the show?
Don't hang out with one another, please, please. How many times have I seen, company sends 4 or 5 people to work the show, and literally those 4 or 5 people literally hang out together from morning, from sunrise to sunset and along past that. Wrong. You want to be breaking up. You want to be getting out there. You want to be walking the aisles. You want to be and the other thing is, don't stand behind the table. Don't stand behind the counter. Get out front, engage with people. Have those casual conversations that have people saying, "Hey, I know you people. Yeah, we need to talk."
Yeah. What else, as far as Mark, what do you coach them on? How do they start conversations? Do they stand on the edge with their brochures and try and put people saying, what do you recommend?
I can't stand it, because if you want to see the effectiveness of brochures, go look at the trash cans and the recycling bins on the way out of the trade show floor. They're packed, they're full with all of your brochures. No, what you want to do is you want to get, hey, what brings you to the trade show? What brings you here today? What sessions are you liking? Just engage them in the overall event. Here's why. Now you're allowing them to talk here, and they're kind of taken back by this. And then you can begin to say, yeah, that's kind of what we're finding. We're finding, hey, that session we went to, that was great. Or we did this. You begin to create a connection. And now you can begin to say, hey, this is what we're all about. But how you get to what we're about? Tell me about the challenges you're facing in your business. Tell me about what next year looks like for you. I'm inviting them to sit there and speak first. Then if there's an opportunity, then I could begin to bring myself into it. But if I come in with the hard pitch, come on. That's why people walk down the center of the aisle and never go left or right. The other thing is this. You want to be out front. Why? Because if you ever notice this, if there's nobody in an aisle, nobody walks down it. But if there's a scrum of 5 or 6 people or 7 people, oh, wow, there's something going on there. And people always slow down to look, what's this all about? So you want to create those bodies that are there, those bodies that are having a conversation, a little bit blocking the aisle. Can I go and say it? Yeah, blocking the aisle, because it creates a scrum and people want to participate in it.
That's so good, Mark. I know as I walk around some of the shows, and I'll walk up to a booth just to see what they're going to do, and I get pitched like, "Oh, getting it, like, they don't even ask a question. They don't say like, you know, what's the need? What's going on? Like, why are you here? Nothing like they just go into their routine because that's what they've been taught. And I sit there and go, I'm not a buyer.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I hate seeing that. That's why let them talk first. Let them talk.
Yeah.
And then they'll begin sharing with you. And then you can be it. Because here's the whole thing. If I don't first develop some sort of a relationship, you're not going to listen to anything. You may hear what I'm saying, but you're not going to hear what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me jump in here too, Mark, and talk about from our engagement outreach strategy at the show. One of the things that we found that is really, really beneficial is we'll do interviews inside the booth. And we do that for two reasons. One is going to be at the show, geofence ad campaign, which I'll explain in a second. But we also do video inside the booth and use it for the next 3 to 6 months after the show and take advantage of what we call the I was there phenomenon. So let me talk about the show, about the in booth for at show. Now, what do people do when they're at a show? They need to take a break. I mean, let's be honest, you go to the restroom, you stand in line for a cup of coffee or a piece of like $10 pizza. Like, we've all been to trade shows, right? What do people do? They tend to pull out their phones and they go look at Facebook or they go look at Instagram. They go to social media and they seek to take a bit of a mental break from the show and go see what their friends and family are up to. So what we do to take advantage of that is we will take the same people that we've interviewed on the trade show, and we will interview them in the booth. We want the visual of the person. We want the visual of their brand. We want the visual of their booth to start creating that familiarity. Remember, so that when people walk by, they go, oh, I've seen you on my phone. And they just walk right in. So within the first 15 to 20 minutes of the show opening, we do a video. It becomes like a 2 to 3 minute interview about, hey, what's going on? Where are you? What do you expect? Why is this so exciting? And we will run that in what's called a geofence ad. And if you don't know what geofence ad, it is a radius ad. We can do an ad that says, I want to run this ad to everybody on Facebook and Instagram that are within 1 mile of where I'm standing right now, which is the trade show floor. And what that means, because Facebook, Instagram, they're motivated to get paid, right? They only get paid when they show it. Anytime somebody opens up Instagram or Facebook in that 1 mile radius, guess what's going to happen? There's your brand, there's your CEO, there's your booth, recognition, 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 more of that. I see you everywhere and I feel like I already know you. Now, the second part of that is doing more interview style videos from the booth over the next couple of days in order to prepare to use it as evergreen content for your follow-up and for ongoing content over the next 3 to 6 months, but I'll talk about that in a post show. Mark, is there anything you want to say to kind of wrap up the at show strategy?
No, I love that because again, you want to get pictures, you want to get video, you want to get all that, as much of that stuff, because that has shelf life long after the show is over. Plus, like you said, it just creates connection. Wait a minute, these guys are doing a video. Wait a minute, I saw them on my phone. Yeah, exactly. And that is the way you create. And you talk about creating a scrum. You do a video like that in the middle of the aisle, it's going to create a scrum. And guess what? More people will stop and talk.
Yeah, it's always awesome when I'm in a booth with somebody and I tell them about this and somebody walks in and they say something about, they either literally pull out their phone and go, I see you all over my phone. And like, oh my gosh, I see you guys all over the place. And like Alan and other CEOs, they just look at me like, oh my gosh, I thought you were kidding. I'm like, no, people literally walk in, like guard down and go, oh my gosh, I know you guys. And you start having great
hashtag geofencing. Yeah, love it.
Hashtag geofencing. There you go. And the trade show videos, pre-videos, and at the show. I love what Bob said in here too. He's like, AMC Theaters does that. By the way, I'm hurt that we don't go to the movies more often anymore. That's like the best thing of like the 80s and 90s for me was like go walk around the mall, go, grab dinner, go to a movie. Like that was dating and courting my wife, was dinner and a movie. And now we just don't go to the movies enough. It makes me sad. Mark, do you miss the movies?
You know what? I've never been a big movie person. So, I mean, when I went to movies, it was to fall asleep. So, okay. Honesty.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But I like what Bob said.
Yeah.
The theaters do that. You drive by the mall and suddenly you know what all the movies are,
but-
when they start.
Think about that. Think about what Bob is saying because it's so real. It is geofencing. You're right. You're walking through a mall and you want to get hit with ads from things. This is what fist bump does. This is the power of how. Why do I spend all this money on a trade show booth if I don't get the ROI?
Right.
This helps get the ROI.
Absolutely. So Mark, let's jump into post-show. What are the best practices for sales teams, especially to take advantage of the people they met at a trade show?
One of the things that people always used to say, well, you don't want to inundate them right away because they're just getting back from the show and they're tired, exhausted. Wait for a week or so. You wait a week, and you know what? They've forgotten all about the show.
Yeah.
You got to jump on it ASAP. Within 48 hours, you got to be reaching back out to them by using two mediums. Either it's an email and a text, or an email and social media. It's text, social media, but you got to be reaching out to them with at least two mediums. Not to say, hey, buy from me, but it's to share with them additional insights, additional information. Build your reputation, build your presence, build your brand. That's what you're even doing post-show. Then as they engage, then I can move forward to get that appointment, get to that next step, make the sale.
Yeah, that's great. And in extending on our engagement outreach strategy, what we like to do is I mentioned earlier, we do some of the videos in the booth, especially towards the end of the show, getting people's permission, of course, but interview people that are walking by. Again, as I said at the beginning, the psychology of an interview is great because the guest automatically gets some authority. And it's different than a selfie video that we can tend to be like, oh yeah, you're going to talk about yourself. Somebody's being interviewed, they're being asked questions. We humans tend to pay more attention to it. And we start interviewing and interview people that walk by, interview your clients, interview people from other booths, especially if they're not competitive, right? But you start asking questions about, hey, what were the key themes of the show? What was your big takeaway? What are people talking about? What we're really doing is kind of being the news for those that weren't able to attend, but it's also, we take advantage of that I was there psychology, that we tend to pay more attention to things when I was there. So some of the strategies that we do with this video, like the ones I shared, we also do things like try to make it a little bit more fun. A bloopers roll always comes out of this. And, we know people love to be entertained. But we ask questions, things like based on where they are. Like we were in San Antonio and I started asking people questions like, okay, the Alamo, overwhelmed or underwhelmed? And most of them were like, oh my gosh, I expect the Alamo to be so much bigger. It's this tiny little building, and get them to talk about it. On a scale of 1 to 10, rate your hotel pillow and tell us why. And they talk about it. What are we doing? We're getting people to share their experience. Yeah, we're talking about what are the key takeaways? What are people talking about? What was the big theme of the show? All of that type of stuff. But we throw in there a little bit of humanity, and we're capturing people's heart. They're coming into it. They're paying more attention. And the whole I was there phenomena, what that means, and you think about it, I can tell you my personal story of how I came up with this. But when we were at an event, we pay attention to all the coverage of that event because we're egocentric and I was there. Mark, I don't know if I've ever told you the story, but I came up with this because I took my son to a Braves game, an Atlanta Braves baseball game, and I'm not a huge baseball fan. I love my son. I love going to live events, and we had good ice cream and hot dogs and all of that. and I don't watch ESPN very often, but I found myself, I mean, honest story, I found myself, we came home after watching the game, and I'm sitting in front of the TV watching ESPN, waiting for the highlights of the game that I was just at. Like I was just there. Now, call me crazy, which I know I am, but I'm sitting there going, why am I doing this? I was just at the game, but there was something that drew me to kind of want to watch on TV something where I was just at. Mark, do you ever do that?
Yes, we all do. We all do, because again, it's somehow we want to connect back to that moment and so forth. Yeah, that's a real phenomenon.
Yeah, I love what Judy just wrote in the chat. It validates your experience. Judy, I'm going to start using that. That is a great way that I was there because we want to validate our experience. Now, think about this over the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. You have this content, and now you can follow up with people and say, going, hey, we had a good talk there. You got 30 minutes for a call. You could say, hey, I'm going to share this link with the video that we did from the booth about XYZ. Oh my gosh, I wanted to share this with you. We have a really funny video that people are sharing their experiences at the show. I want to share it with you. What we're really trying to do is just change that lens that other people have of us so that when we do reach out for them, we are more likely to have a positive experience because they remember us, they like us. Maybe they think we're kind of funny because we're wearing an orange cowboy hat doing silly stuff. But because we've educated and entertained them a little bit, they're much more likely to get on that call and have a good conversation with us. And what I find, and I've got some data, I'm not always comfortable with the data I get with customers, but it accelerates the process. Because even if they're a no, they don't ghost you. They just say, hey, great, love it, appreciate it, we're not interested, or it's not the right timing, but accelerates the process so you're not wasting as much time. What do you think, Mark?
Oh, I think without a doubt. I mean, this is just, I mean, again, you put all this money into the trade show to not milk it after the fact, because think about this in sales. How many times do we give up too early?
Yeah.
Prospect?
Yeah.
And that's a little bit like the trade show. We're giving up. We're right there. And Bob Britton was so right. First to contact, first to contract. That's a line I've used for ages. That's why you got to be quick. You got to be there because again, you're going to suddenly take that. You know what? I do need to talk to them. We do need to sign them. We do need to be working with them.
Absolutely. I'm going to share a little case study, and this is from Fist Bump and a customer that we've done, Ludia Consulting. I mentioned them a little bit earlier, but one of the things that we found for them is they got 4 times their qualified pipeline goal from one trade show, and they had 120% of their revenue goal at the 4-month mark. That was a revenue goal they had for 12 months after the show from the show. And they had hit 120% of that goal at the 4-month mark. So this process, this use of video, this use of some of that LinkedIn content, it really does prove to be very, very valuable. And for everybody, like I'm going to give you a chance here. I've got an ebook that we can give you a little bit more detail on it, and you can always raise your hand and say I'd love to learn more, and I'd be happy to talk with you. But before we do that, Mark, let's summarize this. We've talked about trade shows from the pre, the at, and the post show. What's kind of your final message to leaders as they prepare for future trade shows?
Yeah, look at this as an Oreo cookie. Come on, Oreo cookie. You know, we all used to take the top or the bottom off and lick the cream, right? The cream was the best part. But you know what? As we get older, it's amazing how that Oreo cookie just tastes a lot better with the whole thing. And that's what the pre is, and that's what the post is. The cream is still the at show in the middle. But I'll tell you what, the cookie tastes a lot better with the whole thing. So you've got to be able to put the time and resources into the pre, and you got to put the time and resources in the post. And what that's going to do is that's going to give you that ROI. This is why so many organizations, after they get done participating in a trade show, they go, was it worth it? I don't know if it was worth it. Well, it wasn't worth it because you didn't do it right. That's what this whole process is all about, helping you spend your trade show dollars the right way.
Yeah. Everybody, here's the link if you would like to download, or actually this one, I'm sorry, let me go back. I've got all kinds of craziness. If you would like to learn more about the Booth Magnet program, this is a link that you can put in. I was trying to copy it and put it into the chat, but I forgot to put it in my notes. So maybe someone else can grab it and put it in there. But if you want to chat a little bit about this trade show program or portions of this trade show program, I'd love to talk with you and see if it's a good fit for you and your organization. And by the way, I didn't put it on here. I just forgot. We've been busy, but I have the ebook on this trade show program that we call the Booth Magnet. If you want the ebook program, find me on LinkedIn or email me. It's simple, Brandon@getfistbumps.com, and I'll be glad to get you a copy of that ebook as well. And just so you know, like, we're not a hard sell. You want to chat? Let's have a chat. We'll show you what we're doing. If we're a good fit for you, we think you'll love us. And if we're not a good fit for you, then you know what? We don't want to waste your time or ours. So thanks for everybody for joining us. Mark, I wanted to open it up a little bit. I expect there's going to be some questions, especially for you. Does anybody ask questions? I'd love to answer those for a few minutes. And then I promised Mark I would have him out of here by 10 minutes till. So you got up to 5 minutes for questions if we have some.
Hey, I've got a question that I'm going to ask and answer, and that is, what's the right time frame to start talking about your trade show before the trade show? And my answer to this is relative to the size and the importance and the geographical range of the show. If I'm doing a national show that happens once a year and it's a big show, thousands and thousands of people, I'm going to start that 6 months, good 6 months in advance. If it's a small regional show, I might go 4 months. If it's a little tiny local show, I might go 2 months. So you set your pre based off the size and the scope and the impact of the show.
That's a really good point. And I think I like that you said more than I would, because I probably would have said a little bit less than that. But I think you're right. It also, what I like about it too, Mark, it made me think of is it gives you a topic to talk about with your customers that's other than, do you have time for a sales call?
Yes, that's the big thing, because you got time. Because if it's a big national show, I can be talking to people 6 months in advance saying, hey, wow, I just saw the agenda on this. Some of these educational sessions are going to be great. Are you going? How many people from your company are going? And again, it's a great, I can use it in so many ways with existing clients, with clients that have left me, or as a prospecting piece. Again, staying very focused in your lane of your ICP.
Yeah. Mark, I have a question that came in here that is, how do smaller emerging companies deal with large trade shows? Senior management is hesitant to commit the financial or people resources necessary to get things done.
Oh, I'll answer this one. Depending on where your funding comes from. If you are a startup and you're truly getting VC money, from a PE firm, et cetera, you can't afford not to show, not to display. But that's why it's important that you got to create presence beforehand. You got to do that. Now, if you're not in that camp, you may walk the show the first year just to establish, and then begin to participate. So it's going to depend a little bit on what your financial resources are and what your growth expectations are as a company. But if you're in any type of we got to grow quickly, you've got to get booth space right away. And that's why you got to get fist bump involved, because otherwise you're going to get lost. You're going to get run over, because that first year booth placement is probably not going to be optimal. So guess what? You better make sure that you're doing everything you can pre and post to get that space worthwhile.
I appreciate that, Mark. It was interesting. Judy posted in here, and it's not so much a question, but she's part of the educational, she's involved in creating educational content for the biggest trade show in her industry, which is in February. And she said that to date, there's been very little exhibitor engagement on the social channels. I think it's so often, like, and we had, and I don't want to use a name, but we had a customer of ours that called us like 8 weeks before their biggest show. They invested about $250,000. They had all these breakout sessions and sponsorships, And about 8 weeks out from the show, they're like, hey, can you guys help us? Like, we just invested all this in our show, but we realized we've done nothing to promote it ahead of time. And we're like, we usually start working 4 months ahead of time, and we were 8 weeks away, and we're like, we scrambled, we did a great job for them, but too often the whole like promotion and conversation about it is just backburnered. They don't even think about it.
They spend more time figuring out what the swag is they want to give away. I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, swag these days, I mean, come on, how much swag can we handle? We've all had too much swag given to us. We've all left too much swag in airport garbage cans, hotel rooms.
Yes.
You spend a little more on the pre and the post. I think it's going to be a better ROI for you. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I just upset every premium company out there. I
Not
had to
at
call an ace and a spade a spade.
Let's see. If they use fist bump, can they cut back a bit on the booth expense? Bob, I think that's a great question. And I know Chris Dunn is on here. He works for Blue Hive. They build trade shows. I'd hate to say yes, especially for folks like Chris that are building booths. But I would also tell you, Chris is saying that a lot of companies, in talking with him, they're cutting back on their booth size anyways, because they're going into these shows not expecting an ROI. They see it as an expense instead of an opportunity for an ROI. So yeah, I think there you can take a look at that, going, maybe we do a little bit smaller booth and put a little bit more into promotion. In my previous company, we went from doing 20 by 20s going down to 10 by 20 booths, and then spent a lot of that extra money on entertainment and other things that we were doing to draw attention into our booth, like content and things like that. So I think that's definitely a way to look at it.
At the end of the day, more than booth size, it's placement. Where are you at on the floor? Because again, we could have a 20 by 20 booth, but if we're in a back corner, who cares? We could
Yeah.
have a 10 by 20 if we're in a great location, front end of the main aisle as everybody comes in, spot on, we're there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. I told Mark I'd have him out 1 minute ago. So thank you all so much for joining us. Mark, thank you so much for joining me again on another webinar. I'm always so grateful for you and our friendship.
I love Fist Bump. I love what it's doing to help the sales community and the marketing community and companies make their trade shows more efficient.
I appreciate it, Mark. Everybody, if you have, Mark, go do your thing. I'll stick around for the last couple minutes. Everybody, if you have questions or something I can ask, I will put this back. Oops, where is it? Here, if you want to chat a little bit about it, or you could even fill that out and say, Brandon, I don't want to chat. I just want the ebook. We'll get that off to you. Sorry, I didn't have that URL in there. But Mark, thanks so much. Appreciate
Thanks so much. Great selling, everybody.
See you, Mark. All right, everybody, I'll stick around just to wrap up. I see people are still here. If you have any questions, you want to put them in the Q&A or the chat, I'll be glad to answer them. Oh, thanks. I put the link in there, which means someone on my team did. Thanks so much for putting that on there. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you coming. Can't wait to do one of these with you, Chris. Oh, that's a good question, Jim. Chris, you might be able to answer this too. What is the most unique idea you've seen to get people into your booth? Chris, you probably have much better answers to this. Jim, I don't know how unique it is, but I've seen people spend lots of money on celebrities. That does draw a whole bunch of people into the booth. Does it convert to revenue? I don't know. Does it get a lot of people coming to your booth? Absolutely. Interesting. Some of the more unique ideas. I did see one time somebody, and they drew a lot of attention, is they had a dunk machine in their booth. And they put different people from the industry and different people like leadership in their company and stuff like that. I think they were doing things like you could nominate people that would be in there. So like you could put like, hey, I want this person in there so I can dunk them type of stuff. That booth had a lot of attention. I don't know. They had a lot of attention. They had a lot of people, but those are the ones that I am thinking of. We'll know if a celebrity endorsement works in about 5 days. I know. I get it, Bob. Oh. All right. I don't see any other questions coming in. I still see people on here, which means you probably just kind of let this on while you were doing other things. But everybody, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any other questions or you have any other, you want to talk about the Booth Magnet program or you want the ebook, there's the link, or message me on LinkedIn. And if you can't find me, it's Brandon Lee Digital. There's not very many Brandon Lees on LinkedIn, but you can find me there. And we'll see you next time on our webinar, or come visit us on my show, which is Mastering Modern Selling. If you do a search in LinkedIn or YouTube for Mastering Modern Selling, you can find us there, or any of your podcast channels. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much. Have a great day. Happy Halloween. I'm going to head home and get ready to give out a whole bunch of candy.